Hey everybody, I'm John and this is Blind Whiskey Reviews. Hey everybody, and thank you so much for joining me today here on Blind Whiskey Reviews, the most honest reviews on YouTube. Today I'm bringing you another No Time Like the Present review where we crack open a brand new bottle of whiskey. I can give you my initial thoughts before we get to the blind review down the line. So today we're taking a look at the Little Book Chapter 2. I recently reviewed the brand new release of the Little Book Chapter 3 from this year. This is the 2018 release. So, wanted to do all these. I've got all three bottles. I've been wanting to get into them forever, so this is one of the reasons I made these No Time Like the Present reviews, so I can do reviews of bottles like this that I really wanted to open and never could because I didn't get to pick my whiskey that I opened. So, we're getting away from that. We're getting into me being able to pick whiskeys I want to open, and don't worry, there's going to be plenty of blind reviews to come. I mentioned this before because someone called me out on it, but I have to do a bunch of these No Time Like the Present reviews to kind of get my supply built up of blind samples because I'm kind of changing the way I logistically handle doing these blind reviews. So it's all still blind, but these the No Time Like the Present reviews will always precede, once I get to that point, will always precede me doing the blind reviews. So once we get to that point, we'll be good, but I got to front load a bunch of these so I can get enough blind samples that it's actually blind and I couldn't just guess what it is because there's such a limited amount of samples available for me to pick from. So today, we're doing the Little Book Chapter 2. This, for those of you, Little Book is made by Jim Beam. This is Chapter 2 called Noe Simple Task. So Freddie Noe, who's the son of Fred Noe, is the current master distiller of Jim Beam and the grandson of Booker Noe, who is the kind of fabled, famous master distiller of Jim Beam. He's been putting together these blends. This is the second in the series. And he's just been taking blends of unique whiskeys and making them into his own concoction of something he wants to put out. So this year it was made as a blend of an 8-year-old Kentucky straight rye whiskey, a 40-year-old Canadian whiskey, and a 13-year-old Canadian rye whiskey. It was bottled at 59.4% alcohol, 118.8 proof. So a pretty high proof, pretty interesting blending of whiskeys. We've got some younger at the 8-year-old range. We've got some really old whiskey at the 40-year-old range. They don't tell us what the ratios of these different whiskeys are, but we know they're in this bottle. So I am not not necessarily a connoisseur. I'm just no expert on Canadian whiskey. I don't drink a ton of it because you Canadians keep all the good Canadian whiskey up in Canada. So a lot of it doesn't make it down here to the States. So I've tried some decent Canadian whiskeys and some good Canadian whiskeys, but from what I can tell, it's really difficult for us to get the really good stuff. So I'm curious to see what he did with this blend. With there being 40-year-old whiskey in here, I can't imagine it's that much of this blend, but hey, let's find out. So we've got the standard Jim Beam release wax top. Oh, and as you can tell, this is the older Jim Beam wax. It's cracking and crumbling everywhere. For those of you that haven't watched my latest reviews of the Knob Creek whiskeys, it seems like they've modified their wax that they're using. It does not make the mess that it used to do, which is, this is a 2018 release, so this mess is a little bit more than it has been in the last few Knob Creek bottles I've opened. So they've amended this issue, which is an issue. It's always been a problem getting wax everywhere with one of these. So the usual synthetic cork we've been getting from Jim Beam for a while. Let's pour some whiskey. It's like a lighter amber color, pretty bordering on that golden hue. Put this back over here. Let's get to the nose. The nose so far is very light. Light fruits, apples, pear. There's definite spice in here. I mean, you can definitely smell the rye. So far, I'm not getting the proof on the nose that you'd expect with something that's nearly 120 proof to really kind of make it difficult to get down to the glass, and not at all. Out a little further from the glass, you're definitely getting those fruity notes. Mainly lighter fruit. There's kind of a hint of an herbal quality. A little bit of a floral quality to it as well. As you get down into the glass, you definitely get those more rye notes. A little bit of spice, herbal spice, black pepper. I'm no expert on Canadian rye, but it definitely has that feel to it compared to the other Canadian ryes I can think that I've tasted. All right, I got a little bit of the proof when I try to really dig in there. So enough of this smell, and let's get into the taste. Cheers. Yeah, right when it hits the palate, you know definitively this is rye whiskey. I'd be curious what the blend ended up being as the percentage of rye. It feels pretty high. I don't think it's 100%, but it feels like it's up there. I mean, before we get into flavors, it's surprisingly easy drinking for 120 proof. You're not getting a ton of heat, not getting a lot of burn on the palate. So that's really surprising for the proof that it is. I don't think I'd peg it at 118 point, what is it, 8 proof? I don't think I would say that was it. Let me get a drink of water, clean up the palate a little bit here. All right, let's go in for another taste. Wow. It's just so easy drinking for that proof. That's dangerous. So it's like I said, up front, light and fruity. You've got some nice apple, some pear, a little bit of citrus perhaps. Mid palate, it really starts turning into those rye qualities. You're getting a little bit of that spice, those herbal notes, but still sweet. It's kind of staying sweet the entire way through, which is nice because oftentimes with these really high rye, and especially 100% rye whiskeys, they get this really overspiced, bitter bite to them. This does not have that. It stays sweet all the way through. So I'm pretty sure he did a really good job blending that in. I'm sure that's what they were looking for, because it's one thing that can be off-putting about really high rye whiskeys. There's some hints of deeper fruit notes in there. Having a hard time putting my finger on what those fruity qualities are in terms of like what fruit I'm tasting, but they're deeper, they're darker, maybe in the like berry realm. And I mean, my impression is that maybe is part of what's coming from the older whiskey. Toward the back of the palate, it bitters up a little bit. You definitely taste some oak. You taste a little bit of vanilla, and you taste. I mean, those fruity notes are still there, though. You're almost getting right towards the end, you're getting like almost like a sour apple bite, which is nice. It keeps it from being cloying. It's not overly sweet to begin with, but it kind of just takes a little bit of the edge off the sweetness and lets you have this finish of these spicy qualities, these herbal notes, and definitely a lot of what you're getting contributed from the rye in this whiskey. So far so good. I definitely am intrigued to see what happens as this whiskey opens up. I like it so far. I love the ease of drinkability on this and the flavors. It's not off-putting. I was really kind of, some of these higher rye, especially Canadian ryes that I've had, they're very bitey. This one doesn't have that. They've really blended that out and made it so it's very approachable. So excited to see what happens to this as it opens up. As we always do in these reviews, we're going to give it 20-30 minutes to open up a little bit, see if we can get some idea of how this whiskey is going to get down the line after it has a chance to get a little airtime. So we'll be back with that in a second. All right, so we've had about 20 minutes to let this whiskey open up. Let's get back to it and see how it's doing. I mean, maybe some of those rye spicy notes have backed off just a touch. I'm getting a little bit more sweetness on the nose, a little more depth on the nose. A little more like brown sugar sweetness. Maybe a little more dark fruit. Smells interesting. Let's get to the taste. I mean, a lot of the same characters, again, still definitively a Canadian rye whiskey. I swear it almost tasted like a nuttiness. And I know there's an 8-year Kentucky straight rye whiskey in here. And obviously I'm assuming it's theirs from Jim Beam. And I almost taste that Jim Beam nutty character in there, just the ever so slightest hint. And I'm curious when we do the blind review if I'll pick that up, because obviously I know what this is. I've got some preconceived notions in my head of what I'm going to taste, but I feel like I taste that in there. I feel like it's enough where I'll notice when it's blind. I mean, I really think this is a very solid blend. I mean, you've got to know what it is going into it. If I drank this thinking I was drinking a bourbon or something, I'd be really off put. But if you go into this knowing it's a blend with some Canadian whiskey in it and you kind of have some experience with these things, it fits the expectations. I mean, you can definitely taste the Canadian whiskey in here. You can definitely feel the rye. And like I said, I'm starting to pick up on a little bit of that Jim Beam quality to it. So I'd be really curious to know what the percentages of the different whiskeys they blended into this were. My guess would be there's a lot of the 8-year American or Kentucky rye whiskey in here. Because if I'm tasting that Jim Beam quality, there's got to be enough to really, I mean, it's got to be at least, 30, 40, 50% of this, I would guess. So I'd be really curious to ask. I don't think they'll tell me, but hey, maybe we can get some info. Maybe one day when this channel gets big enough, we'll get Freddie Noe on the channel to admit to what's in this whiskey. But anyways, as it sits, I really enjoy this. I think it's good. If you're just trying to drink bourbons and you want it to taste that way, this is not that. If you want bourbon, this is not bourbon. This does not taste anything like bourbon. It definitely tastes like a rye whiskey, but it tastes like a smooth, sweet, very well blended, drinkable rye whiskey. So I wouldn't write this one off. I actually think it is really good. So I'm curious to see what happens as it opens up. But for me, I've heard a lot of things about this whiskey since it came out a year ago. So I really didn't know what to expect. I was able to try it one time. This was maybe, 6 months ago, because I was waiting to do my blind review of it, which at the time I wasn't opening bottles on the channel. So anyways, let's not digress too much. But anyways, I'm glad to be able to do the review of this here with you guys. I think it's really good stuff. I can't wait to see what it does. I can't wait to review it blind and see what I think of it then. And see if I pick up on that Jim Beam quality, because it's definitely a hint of it there, but it's not super strong. So anyways, if you've had the opportunity to try this whiskey, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Oh, I need to give this a rating. As we have been doing in these No Time Like the Present reviews, I give you a rating so that we can kind of have something to compare to when I do my blind review down the line. So on this one, I actually think it's really good. And I want to give it, the number coming to my head right now is an 88. I think it is really good whiskey. It is very solid, very well blended, nice and complex. You do not taste the proof on it at all. So, I mean, that is a super big bonus. You get a lot of flavor without the burn of that alcohol, which is kind of dangerous. You can drink this very easily. So, watch out if you pick up a bottle. Let me know what you think of this whiskey in the comments down below. And as always, you can catch me on Instagram and Twitter at blind_reviews. You can also catch me on Instagram at Mission Bottle Kill, where I'm posting pictures of people emptying out all kinds of great bottles of whiskey. And if you want me to repost your pick, just tag at Mission Bottle Kill in the post. You can also send me an email at blindwhiskeyreviews, that's whiskey with an E, @gmail.com. And until next time, cheers.